can to field what we can. But our statement is as follows. The gunman from the incident earlier today near the federal building on Chapel Street has been identified as Thomas J. Picard, age 55. The weapons at his disposal included an assault rifle and a handgun. The make and caliber of both weapons will not be released at this time. Both weapons will be handed over to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms for additional analysis. The decedent's body remains at Wheeling Hospital for now and will be transferred to Charleston, West Virginia, by order of the State of West Virginia Medical Examiner, where an autopsy will be performed. There were 3 injuries sustained during this incident, notwithstanding the decedent's. All 3 injuries were active on-duty court security officers employed by the U.S. Marshal Service at the federal building. All injuries were minor, superficial, and all have been treated and released. As to motive, clearly that's what remains the key investigative components tonight and that we continue to work on. Part of that includes the decedent's vehicle, which remains at the crime scene on Chapman Street, as well as the decedent's residence. That residence is in Bridgeport, Ohio. There will be no additional press conferences this evening. As relevant details become available or the need to release additional information becomes evident, we will certainly notify you. I'm sure there are plenty of questions, and we'll try to entertain those now.
Chief, any past history of problems with the shooter? I mean, major problems?
I'm not aware of any, but that would be speculation on my part. I am not aware of any as far as it relates to the Wheeling Police Department.
Have you had an opportunity to review his personnel file from the department?
We've got a lot of other things to do. That will be something that will be done later.
And Chief, you said the suspect's vehicle is still on scene. Was that a gray Toyota pickup truck?
I'm not exactly sure what the vehicle was, but it was not a gray Toyota pickup truck.
Chief had reports that the Allegheny County PA bomb squad was over in Bridgeport here just within the last hour or two. Is that part of the search of his residence?
I'll refer that to the FBI.
Yeah, I'm Bob Johnson, Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Pittsburgh Division. Just out of a precautionary measure, we sent a bomb squad out there to go on and secure the trailer, and we're going to make it safe before we send in our evidence response team.
Do you have anybody that was with him?
At this time, we don't have any knowledge of that.
Is anyone aware of where he may have been employed or what he was doing since
No,
his...
That's still in the process of being determined.
Did he have the pistol on him? Where was the pistol found? In the car, or was it on him?
Again, that's part of your ongoing investigation that will determine that.
Can you tell us what his vehicle was? The make and model of his vehicle that's
I
at
don't
the
have
scene?
the exact make and model right now.
If anyone up there has?
It was a passenger vehicle, Tyler. That's all I can
I think it
tell
was a
you. That's all I
sedan.
know.
It was a 4-door sedan.
How many shots were fired?
As of now, we don't have a total count.
Do you know was the handgun fired at all, or was it just?
Again, we don't know.
Are you going to be family members of his tonight?
Once we identify some, yes, if we can.
Has there been an indication, did windows actually shatter at the federal building or glass? The glass that's there, is it shatterproof, bulletproof? Do we know, did windows actually shatter on the exterior of the building? Anyone know?
I'm going to pass off to the Marshal Service.
The windows itself, the bullets did penetrate some of them, and there is shard glass inside the federal building.
Were those windows, when it's not a shatterproof glass that's on, anywhere on that building? Or do you not know?
Obviously, the glass could not take the bullets as far as
Okay.
what was given to it, so there is shards of glass inside the federal courthouse.
Gary, now that the weapons have been identified, was the assault rifle that was used, was that the weapon that Deputy Marshal Chad Simpson was walking away from the scene with?
That I don't know. I just know that the Marshal Service assigns certain weapons to their deputies, and I'm sure that they were armed to encounter the threat if they were faced with one. So I'm not sure what type of weapon that Deputy Simpson had.
I know you're piecing this together, and it's very early on, and the motive, of course, is the big unanswered question, but aware of any grievances? Or was he aiming at anything in particular in the building, or any floor or anything? Can anybody address that?
That's still trying to be determined.
Do we know if he actually shot at the YWCA building, which is kind of catty corner from the federal building?
Again, that's still trying
Still
to be
being-
determined.
We know that he shot windows at the U.S. Attorney's Office, at least.
Thank you, sir.
We know he hit windows at the U.S. Attorney's Office. At least 3 different offices were struck. Those offices are on the second floor.
U.S. Attorney Ehlenfeld, do you know of any grievance that Mr. Picard would have had with your office?
No.
Mr. Ehlenfeld, just to clarify for us at the earlier press conference, were you in the building at the time the shots were fired?
Yes.
Can you describe what you heard?
What sounded like gunshots and then panic within the office. Members of my staff either crawling on the floor or running office to office telling people to get away from the windows.
Was there a large weapons case today on the calendar, a federal weapons arraignment or case?
Not to my knowledge. We announced a long list of indictments today, but there's no connection between those and this as far as I can tell.
What is the situation at your office or the federal building in general going to be like over the next 24 hours? Will it remain locked down, or will employees be going back to work tomorrow?
The building itself will remain open, and others up here can speak to that better than I can. They were involved in some briefings. It will remain open. Federal court will be open for business tomorrow in Wheeling. As far as my office goes, we are going to allow folks to not come in because many of them were shaken by what occurred today. And so there'll be a skeleton crew tomorrow. There'll be a few of us in there making sure that everything's taken care of, but a lot of the folks will be encouraged to stay home.
Chief Schwartzberger, earlier you mentioned that gunfire from both a Wheeling officer and potentially court security, I believe your word was incapacitated the shooter. Have you determined yet, or do we know who fired the fatal shot on Mr. Picard?
That's way too early
Okay.
to be determined, but certainly we'll hope to glean some of those results during the autopsy and interviews.
We can confirm what year he stopped working from.
I believe I mentioned earlier July of 2000.
Chief, are you aware of when he started with the department?
I am not. I have not looked at the personnel file. I have no personal knowledge of Mr. Picard.
Does anybody here have any history of him? I mean, he worked there, you said he retired in.
13 or 14 years ago, he resigned.
Okay.
But I'm sure there are officers on our department that are aware of him, but I'm not one of them.
I worked with him. He was a beat cop, and I prosecuted cases.
Can you,
I'm sorry.
I worked with him. He was a police officer on the streets of Wheeling, and he made arrests and brought them to court, and I prosecuted the cases that he brought to court. There was nothing about my relationship with him or anything that I observed in dealing with him for probably from 97 to 2000 that would cause me to think anything like this would happen.
Do you know, is he a resident? Was he a resident of Wheeling? Like, if he was a Wheeling cop, do you have to be a resident of Wheeling to be a cop in Wheeling?
He was a police officer 14 years ago. He's not today.
Right. So 14 years ago, did he live in Wheeling? You knew him when he was in Wheeling, correct? Is that?
I knew him when he was a city Wheeling police officer between 97 and 2000. And that's when I started, was 97, and I'm hearing that he ended his term in 2000, so I knew him during that time period.
So were you at the Ohio County Prosecutor's Office at that time?
Yes.
do you recall any crosswords or anything with this gentleman?
No.
Nothing that would stand out, looking back? I mean, I know it's early on.
It's been a long time, but no, nothing at all.
Mr. Ehlenfeld, can you tell me if Tom Picard responded to the murder-suicide committed by Mark Storm in March of '97? And if so, was he ever treated for any post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of that investigation?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Agent Johnson, will you be speaking with some Wheeling police officers that may have known Officer Picard or Mr. Picard during his time here?
Yes, we will be reaching out to them.
Do you know anything about a note that was apparently left at the residence in Bridgeport in Latin?
I don't have any personal knowledge of that.
Does anyone that may be up here now know anything about that?
What kind of surveillance video will we have, or will you guys have this? How many?
We are still trying to determine
Several cameras around the
the
premises.
courthouse. You're right, but we have to review all those. And we have to get with the businesses around there and try to secure whatever they have.
Is there Any other information that you can give us on him, his past, anything?
Not, not as of right now. We're still on the initial stage of this.
Did Mr. Picard die at the scene or en route to the hospital or at the hospital? If anyone's aware.
My understanding
He
is,
was transported by ambulance.
yeah, we don't have direct knowledge of exactly where he,
You know how long he might have been in that parking lot before the gunfire erupted?
again, we're gonna have to go through some video
Yeah.
cameras and see if we can see how long he's been there.
Was he shot multiple times?
Again, we don't know, but we're gonna have to receive the autopsy.
How long do you guys expect to be here throughout the night, or have the street closed in front of the courthouse there?
We really don't know until we get on the scene and get a full picture of what's going on.
Are we looking through the night, like during the night, or?
There's a possibility, yes.
Do you anticipate,
Work at any other police departments prior to,
I don't have any knowledge of that.
The courthouse was on lockdown for about a couple of hours today on this thing, and was it evacuated eventually, or did somebody?
At the initial time of the incident, it was our protocol, we placed everyone in the building on shelter in place. We notified each of the offices they were to shelter in place until such time as either the police department or the U.S. Marshal Service notified them that the situation had been resolved to the extent that they could be released from their offices. When we were informed that the incident had resolved, we did go personally to each office and notify the employees of those offices that they were free to move about. We took that time to determine if there were any witnesses in those offices so they could be segregated from the other people, and we allowed employees to leave as they could.
What is your name?
Sarah Ahrens, A-H-R-E-N-S, and I am the Judicial Security Inspector with the
Sarah.
Marshal Service.
S-A-R-A-H?
No H on Sarah. Any other questions regarding that?
I'm not sure who can answer this, but you know from the time when the first shot was fired to the time that Picard was shot himself, how much time had elapsed? I know that police headquarters is very close. You guys are right out in front of the office there, so how many, between the time he shot, the first shot, 20-some shots, when the time he was went down?
Again, as these gentlemen have indicated, this is still under preliminary review, investigation, so I think it would be premature for me to suggest this.
Can you say within seconds at least, or a minute?
I can say that the court security officers and the deputy marshals in the building responded immediately upon notification.
Could I ask you, sir, how many employees do you have in your office on that second floor? Right.
Well, they weren't all there today because some of them were furloughed. I can't give you an exact number. We were.
Because of you mean the government shutdown?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
But the offices that were struck with gunfire, those were offices of criminal AUSAs who were at the office today working.
Do you believe your office was targeted?
There's nothing that I've been made aware of today that leads me to believe that.
Mr. Picard had not under indictment surveillance for anything that you're aware of through your office that you could talk to?
No, he was not under investigation for anything. We wouldn't normally comment on that, but because of the circumstance, it's only fair to him, and plus he's passed away. But no, and whether he was targeting our office or the building in general, it wasn't just the U.S. Attorney's Office that was struck with gunfire, it was other parts of the building. And so take from that what you will.
Now, Bill, you said the security guards that were shot, were they injured by gunfire or were they injured by maybe falling glass?
Well, none of the security guards were shot.
Okay. Any responding police officers or sheriff's deputies, state police, U.S. Marshals hit by gunfire?
I think that the chief addressed the injuries. There were a total of 3 injuries, and they were superficial injuries, I think from glass that had shattered. Folks in my office had glass spray upon them from the windows, but to my knowledge, they were not injured. The officers were injured on other floors.
I don't know who can address this, but it just is so bizarre that somebody targets a building and not a person. Do you know what I'm saying? Just shooting at random at a building. Thoughts anybody can share with us on this?
I think that's why they're continuing to investigate the motive to see if there's anything more to it. It's a great question, and they're investigating right now. They are, we helped to obtain search warrants today from a federal judge to explore exactly that issue, and when we have answers, we'll be able to share them with you.
When you say there was people going because of the furlough, are you talking about half the office or what, like roughly?
I can't give you exact numbers today because there might have been somebody off for another reason, but roughly 40% of our staff are not working right now as a result of the furlough. And quite frankly, the security plans that we have in place to deal with situations like this don't work when we don't have everybody